From Washington, D.C., welcome to the 134th broadcast of the Harness Racing Alumni Show. I'm Freddie Hudson, and I'm here today with Trade Martin and Bob Marks.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show with your hosts, Freddie Hudson and Trade Martin.
This week's Alumni Show is brought to you by Bill Houghton, insuring standardbreds and farms for over 40 years. Bill knows the ins and outs of equine insurance. Make sure your equine investments are protected. Call or text Bill at 954-655-5547. That's 954-655-5547. Call Bill now.
Hey, Freddie, I heard that Huntington Farms had a great sale. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Huntington Farms Steve and Cindy Stewart wish to thank all of the owners and trainers that purchased a Huntington Farm yearling at this year's Lexington Selected Sale. Huntington Farm wishes all of you much luck and success with your purchase. Look for the Huntington Farm consignment at the upcoming Harrisburg sale, November 8th through the 12th. For more information, call Huntington Farm at 859-987-3983 or email huntingtonfarm@cs.com. That's huntingtonfarm@cs.com. Joining us is our special guest, the former majority owner of Pimlico and Laurel Racetracks, who is now a board member of the Horseracing Integrity and Safety Authority, Mr. Joe DeFrancis. Joe, welcome on the Harness Racing Alumni Show.
Thanks, Freddie. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's our honor to have you. Joe, my first question, what is the status of the HISA draft document? Is it still expected to be available this month?
Yes, and hopefully it will be available literally any day. The team is just trying to put the finishing touches on the last sort of commas and semicolons, and I'm very optimistic it'll be available this week, or if not, early next week.
Okay. And has HISA signed a contract with USADA yet? Rather, has USADA signed a contract with HISA yet?
We're still in negotiations and discussions with USADA. That's all proceeding very, very well. But as you might imagine, there's an awful lot of work to do and a lot again of I's to dot and T's to cross. And so again, we're hopeful that will be announced any day. But that's still something that's in process.
Okay. Well, a few weeks back, you along with HISA's chair Charlie Sheeler and executive director Hank Zetterlin attended a virtual meeting with some of Harness Racing's leaders that included Johnny Campbell, Jeff Dorrell, Steve Stewart, Andy Cohen, Gordon Banks, Linda Toscano, myself. Can you share with our audience some of the details of that meeting?
Well, I'd be more than happy to. I thought it was a very productive meeting, and on behalf of HISA, I know I speak for Charlie when I say both he and I were very appreciative that you and Jeff and John and so many other important players in the standardbred industry took the time to get on that call. And I think the main purpose of it was for us to give all of you an update as to what HISA had done to this point, what our plans were on a go-forward basis. And most importantly, to say that the standardbred racing is very, very high on our priority list. It's far from an afterthought. Obviously, given the fact that one segment of the industry has filed a lawsuit against us challenging the constitutionality of the statute under which we're authorized, that's a little bit problematic. But that lawsuit doesn't in any way diminish or minimize the importance in the eyes of the board of HISA of the standardbred industry and the hopes that we have of ultimately resolving those differences and bringing the standardbred industry into the fold, so to speak, with respect to HISA. I think one of the trying to look for as many silver linings in black clouds as we can. One of the advantages, I think, from the standardbred industry's perspective of the delay is the industry will have a chance to take a look at the rules and regulations that we have come out with for the thoroughbreds, and hopefully be able to give us very constructive input as to what tweaks and changes we might need to make in order to make those rules and regulations regulations appropriate for the standardbred industry, because even though obviously both industries share the similarity of racing horses around an oval track, obviously there are a number of important differences that do have ramifications for both for drugs and medication policy on the one hand, as well as for health and safety regulations on the other.
Yeah, well, there was something else in that meeting that was clarified. There seems to be like a miscommunication in the harness racing sport, where the industry is being told that under HISA, the harness racing industry is going to have to pay for the thoroughbreds, and that we're going to have to race under the same rules as the thoroughbreds. And it was clarified in that meeting that that's not true. You want to add a little bit to that?
Sure. The important bottom line is that is absolutely untrue. As I was saying just a moment ago, as it relates to the second half of that, the rules, we well recognize, and I'm very lucky because as we were talking a few minutes ago before the actual broadcast began, I got my start on the racetrack management side in the harness industry with Free State Raceway back in 1980, and so I'm very familiar that with the industry and with the needs that the industry has, and the differences between the thoroughbred industry on the one hand and the standardbred industry on the other. And so definitely from a rules and regulations perspective, there will need to be tweaks and changes in the specifics of the rules and regulations to take account for the idiosyncrasies and unique characteristic of each respective industry. So that. Again, let me say that as loudly and clearly as I can possibly speak English. And then then in the same vein, I don't know where this notion came from. It's often hard to prove a negative, and in the social media internet society that we live today, it's very easy to start totally untrue rumors. But the concept that somehow the standardbred industry would bear costs for the thoroughbred industry is totally ridiculous and absurd. And I can absolutely assure you and anyone listening to this broadcast that will not occur, and that the cost of regulating each industry will be apportioned appropriately between the industries, so neither industry is carrying burden or bearing costs for the other.
Yeah, correct. And it seems that the harness racing industry will probably be opted in by the racing commissions versus the USTA, and it looks more to me like a 2023 timeframe. What happens if a state opts harness racing in at the same time as thoroughbreds come in?
The short answer is we as HISA would say to that state, we don't have the capacity and capability at this moment to provide you with the rules and regulations that would govern harness racing. We would the biggest challenge, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but the biggest challenge that we face is the timing. The law requires us to be operational by January 1, 2022. By July 1, 2022. I apologize. July 1, not January 1. Let me be I misspoke. By July 1, 2022. And in order to achieve that, if you think, we sort of started from ground zero back in the spring, so we had barely more than a year to build an organization from nothing. I compare HISA to a startup, but we didn't have the benefit of that most startups have of having a founding entrepreneur that could bring capital to the table, that could bring an organization to the table. We started with a nominating committee that then put together a board of 9 men and women, and then we started from there and so it's been an enormous mountain of work to do under an extremely short time deadline, and those time deadlines are exacerbated by the fact that we are responsible to the Federal Trade Commission. They are the federal governmental agency that is actually that actually will provide the oversight and the force of law in order to make all of our regulations legal. And in order to comply with all the Federal Trade Commission policies and procedures, we need to get rules and regulations to them within certain lead times so they can be published in the Federal Register register for public comment before the FTC would act and make them effective from a legal perspective. And so in order to have all that done by July 1, 2022, as the Act requires, we're working feverishly and furiously. And so then circling back to your original question, so if a state wanted to opt in on both breeds, we would say, we won't be ready with standardbred regulations by July 1, 2022, but if you want to opt in, then, we will get to work on that and have those as soon as we possibly can.
Okay. And is there any update on the status of the lawsuits?
No, there really isn't, and I'm afraid I can't. As a board member,
Okay.
I couldn't comment publicly on pending litigation,
Okay.
as I'm sure you guys can appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, my last question. Our sport has recently had an increase in race accidents. Will race accidents fall under HISA's safety authority?
In the sense that HISA will have the authority and ability to promulgate rules and regulations relating to health and safety. If you will, HISA sort of has two twin pillar sort of mandates. One are drugs and medication, and the other are health and safety. And so so we will have the capacity to promulgate rules and regulations that relate to health and safety. Obviously, preventing accidents or catastrophic breakdowns is I believe, our most important charge, because those are the most serious and damaging incidents that harm both the participants and the image of our sport. And so to give you an analogy on the thoroughbred side, the one of the issues that is a health and safety as distinct from a drug and medication issue that is a very big hot topic in the thoroughbred industry is the use of the whip by the jockeys. And as is the case with almost any issue involving horse racing broadly, both thoroughbred and harness, it involves striking a balance between competing extremes. On the one hand, we certainly don't want jockeys needlessly abusing and punishing horses with a whip that both harms the horse and, again, from a public perception perspective, is very, very negative. At the same time, a jockey needs a whip in order to be able to control a horse and control at times in a very tight race, control the direction of the horse, keep the horse from lugging in or lugging out and creating a potentially very dangerous situation. So how you create the appropriate rule to balance those competing and somewhat inversely proportional considerations takes a lot of thought and a lot of input, and we're in the process of gathering as much input as we can from the most knowledgeable and experienced people as we can in order to hopefully come up with the best possible solution and as it relates to health and safety. But preventing accidents, preventing catastrophic breakdowns is our main mission statement, I would say.
Okay. And now this question is for everyone, starting with Trade. In your opinion, who needs who more? HISA need in harness racing or harness racing need in HISA?
No, there's no doubt that HISA is the one, definitely. I agree.
Okay, Bob?
Harness racing needs HISA. We need to be part of the racing world. To be separated from it is ridiculous.
And Joe?
I would say we both need each other. What is imperative is, and the far and away, I think the most difficult thing in life is change. As I get older and older, deeper into my 60s now, getting closer to 70 than I am to 60. I think as I look back over the decades in both businesses, change is far and away the most stressful, most most difficult and most controversial element to happen in life generally, let alone in a specific business. But in the course of if I could share one anecdote that I think applies with equal force to the harness industry as it does to the thoroughbred industry, 3 or 4 years ago when the concept of HISA was first being floated and early drafts of the legislation were circulating in Congress, I had the opportunity to debate actually a very good friend of mine on the thoroughbred side, a gentleman named Alan Foreman, who has been the counsel to the Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association here in Maryland, and is also the president of the HTA, which is one of the 2 thoroughbred trade associations representing horsemen. And so Alan and I, go back decades, and at that point in time, we were on opposite sides of the issue, and we were debating at the Albany Law Conference in Saratoga one August. And Alan spoke first, and then when it was my turn, I held up the front page of that day's Washington Post that I happened to bring with me when I flew up from D.C. to Albany. And on the very front page of the newspaper, it wasn't the banner headline, but it was the second story, and it said Walmart and McDonald's pledge totally cage-free eggs by 2025. And Walmart and McDonald's are the 2 largest buyers of eggs in the world. And I directed the audience's attention to that article, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, the people that run these 2 companies, 2 of the biggest and most powerful and most successful corporations, not just in America but in the entire world, didn't wake up with one morning and all of a sudden get a soft spot in their heart for chickens and decide to make this important change in the way in which they conduct business simply because, on a whim, or because all of a sudden someone felt a pang of humanity for the plight of a chicken. I said they spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars every year doing market research so they can keep their finger on the absolute pulse of the needs and desires of their customers. And as good business people, their primary charge as corporate executives is to meet those needs and serve those needs of the customers as fast as they can. And so they realize that even though this is going to cost more money and it's going to be more expensive, they need to make this change in order to meet the changing demands and preferences of their customer base. And I said it's the same thing in horse racing. When I first got started in the business back in the early 80s, horses were considered farm animals like goats and sheep and cows. Now they're considered companion animals like dogs and cats. The public perception of both animal welfare generally and horses specifically has changed radically over that 30 or 40-year period. And it's continuing to change and evolve as we go forward. If we as the stewards of our sport, don't do everything that is within our power to make the public understand that the health and safety and welfare of those animals is our top priority, we're not going to have a business, some number of years down the road from now. It might not be 1 year, might not be 3 years, but, it wasn't that long ago that dog racing was a perfectly acceptable form of entertainment. I'd go down to Florida in the wintertime, and we go to Gulfstream in the afternoon, and we go to the dog races at night. And now it's gone. It wasn't that long ago that I would take my nephews and my niece to go see Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and now it's gone. And so we as stewards of the industry need to recognize that the public preferences and public priorities are changing radically, and we need to change in order to take that into account, or we're going to end up going the way of dog racing and Ringling Brothers Circus.
Absolutely. If you're buying or selling your home, Joe Rico is your go-to guy. Joe has been representing buyers and sellers on Long Island for 30 years. He is an expert in all types of sales. Don't settle for average. Call or text Joe Rico today at 516-524-4870. That's Joe Rico at 516-524-4870.
You know what, Freddie? Give everybody Joe's email address.
That's Joe Rico, C21@yahoo.com. Joe, it was great having you as a guest, and you have an open invitation to come back anytime that you like.
Freddie, I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's always a delight to speak with you.
Our pleasure. That's a wrap for this week's broadcast of the Harness Racing Alumni Show. On behalf of Trade, Bob, and myself, thank you for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week.
The Harness Racing Alumni Show